computer. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now recording, and I'm excited to be here today. It's a beautiful day, 48 degrees, about 30-mile-an-hour wind, so the wind chill's getting there. Messed up my hair too. So today we're going to talk about the brush tool, or some of the brush tool, because there is so much to do with the brush tool. You could do a full week on the brush tool and still not cover everything. I mean, it is just immense. So without further ado, let's get started, and we will go into Photoshop. And everybody can see my screen right now. Not a whole lot there.
Yes.
Good. Minimize everything down here so I can got all my tools available. And let's go to make a new document. So I could go up to File, New, or I can just hit Command or Control N, which is New, and brings up the new document dialog box. And I'm going to go with, let's go with 10 by 8. I mean, 8 by 10. So I'll go over here, and it's 8 by 10. I'm going to change it to portrait instead of landscape. Click OK. I'm going to make it white. I don't want custom, I want white. sRGB, square pixels, that works for me, and we have an 8 by 10 image here. Nah, let's make it sideways. So we'll go image rotation, 90 degrees. There we go. Make it all better. The brush tool is B for brush, B like in brush. You can go over to the tool panel on the left-hand side and click the brush tool, bring up any of your brushes that you want. I have taken the history brush out of my brush palette here and put it down below. We've done an episode on how to change your toolbar, but we can do that again later if you'd like. Basically, this is the basic brush. I'm going to hit D for default, which gives me black and white, which is fairly simple. I use shortcuts because if I'm working on the bottom right down here, okay, and I want to go to the eyedropper tool, I have to go all the way over here, find the eyedropper tool in there. There it is. Click, click, go back to the brush tool, click. It's just a pain to go all the way back and forth. So if you're using your shortcuts, it saves time, saves energy. I'm lazy. I just hit B on the keyboard here and it goes perfectly for me. So I'll do brush. Now I want to go to zoom tool and zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to hold the Z key and it brings up the brush or the zoom tool. Click, click, click. I haven't let go of the Z key. I let go and it goes back to the brush tool automatically. So if you hold the key down, like Z for zoom and zoom in or zoom out, whichever the case is, you can go back and forth if you don't let go of the button. Once you let go, it goes back to the tool that it was in. So does that make sense to everybody? That's kind of a easy thing, really cool. You'll notice that I'm painting with a hard-edged brush, and hard edge basically means you have a hard edge. If we want to go to soft edge brush, I can right click and take the hardness down to 0. And you see the difference there. You can see it spreads out a whole lot out there. Sometimes that's good for retouching. So you just use the edge of the brush to retouch. You don't use the whole brush. So that's soft edge versus hard edge. And I'm using keyboard shortcuts. I hit Command or Control Z to get out of what I just did. Hit Control Z again, which is the oops key, and it just keeps going backwards for you. One of the things you can do, well, let's go with opacity and flow. There's always a lot of confusion about opacity and flow. If I have my opacity at 100%, That's 100% opacity. And I'm using my mouse. I'm not using a Wacom tablet right now, so it's going to be different with a Wacom tablet. If I want to change the opacity, I'll use a keyboard shortcut because I'm lazy. If I hit 5, 5 is the keyboard shortcut for 50%. If I hit 6, 60%. If I hit 1.5, real close, it goes to 15%. If I hit 0, it goes to 100%. Now the question comes up, how do I get to 0% on my paintbrush? Any suggestions? None. Good. It's a confusing question because you can't get to 0 on opacity. The lowest you can go is 1%. Because if you paint with 0%, you're not painting. You're not doing anything. So let's go back up to, let's say 20%. I'm going to make my brush really big. And to make your brush bigger, you hit the right and left bracket keys. The right bracket key, which is next 2 down from the P, makes it bigger. The left bracket key makes it smaller. Or you can go up to your tools up here and change your size this way. Or on the brush settings panel over here, you can change the size here as well. However, if you want to make your brush that big and you take your brush size, okay, let's go over here. No, not quite. No, not quite. Use your bracket keys and get it to exactly the size you want it. That way you don't have to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So let's make it really big. Bracket key. Excuse me. And now I'm going to draw over and over and over. I haven't let go yet, and I'm going over and over and over. This is set at 20%. When I add more to it, that's 20% more. And then if I add over here, it adds 20% there, but where you've already painted in this area here, it makes a big difference. So you can see what happens when you do that. So let's undo those, and we're going to go to 100% opacity and flow at 20%. Now, if you want to do a shortcut for flow, as long as your airbrush is not turned on, you can hit Shift and then your number. So we'll hit Shift 2 goes to 20. Shift 5 goes to 50. Shift 2 goes to 22%. So we'll just do 20% and we'll do the same thing. And you can see it fills in really fast. I mean, that went to 100% really fast. Let's take the flow down to 1%. So I'll do Shift 01 and it's at 1%. And you can see that it starts filling in quicker and quicker. Let's do a different color just so you can see easier. The longer I hold it, the more full it becomes. That's at 1% with my mouse. With my Wacom tablet, pen pressure works also too. I can do this and then build it up to 100% by holding it and spinning it around there. So that's the difference between flow and opacity. Go backwards. Okay. Let's say you wanted to use a keyboard shortcut to change the brush size and change the hardness. So what you can do is hit on a Mac, you hit Control Option, and then drag it left and right to make it bigger or smaller. Right goes bigger, left goes smaller, and it shows you what it looks like. And if you want to make it harder, you drag it up and down. So down makes it harder, up makes it softer. And while you're doing it, it also gives you the information on it, the diameter of the brush, the hardness of the brush, and the opacity of the brush. So you got a little heads up display there so you know what you're doing. You wanted a 50% hardness on the brush. Keep dragging down till you hit 50. And now that's a 50% hardness on the brush. And on a PC, it's Control Alt right click. Control Alt right click. So Mac, Control Option, not Command Option, Control Option. And then on a PC, it's Control Alt right click. Any questions on that one? Okay. Let's go to, we did flow and opacity. Let's change it to, I don't know if this is going to work or not. Hang on. It will not work. Okay. I was trying to outsmart myself and something happened. So let's paint with some god-awful green. There we go. That's pretty much god-awful green, isn't it? And then we'll do some red as well. So we'll add some red. And a little bit of blue. So we'll go in here, hit blue. That looks like blue. And then you got some weird colors going on. If you want to sample a color and you don't want to go over to your color picker over here, hit the eyedropper tool and click on, and then click OK. What you can do is hold the Option or Alt key. And I want, let's say the red that's at the very bottom down here. Hold your Option or Alt key. It brings up the eyedropper tool. You click on it and you can see that it brought up my red that's down there. So that makes it simple. You don't have to do anything hard. You just go down there, Option click, boom, picks the color that you want. That one's fairly quick and easy. Let's get rid of those colors and talk a little bit about the brush settings, because this is something I've always been confused on. The default, let's go hardness at 100. The default here is like, I think 25%. So it's kind of willy wonky. So when you draw a line and see, let's go 100% flow, shift 0. You can see when I try to do a straight line, I get all these little bubbles in there. Well, to fix that, you drag your slider on the scaling, the spacing bar right here, all the way down to 1%, because that's as low as it'll go. And you draw a line. Now you can see you get a straight edge line there. If you do 25%, well, let's just type it in 25%. What that does, it overlaps by 25% each time. If we do 50, I said 50, not 1,000. It overlaps halfway through. If we do 100, this is where it gets interesting. This is where it made sense to me. 100% means every time it finishes painting that one dot, it's going to put the next dot up. So it uses 100% of that brush, goes to the next spot, 100%, and so on. If you do 200, then you can see it's spaced out. You could fit a dot in between each time. If you're accurate and knew what you're doing at 200%. That was a wow factor for me when I learned that. I'm going, wow, I never knew that.
Wow, never knew that.
Wow, I never knew that. Okay. Go back to spacing down to normal. Let's pick a really funny brush. Let's do, got no idea what that one is. Some type of craquelure brush. Okay. Right now, shape dynamics is basically at nothing. So if I do this, it's going to be the same each time. But if I do the size jitter, let's go up to 100% at size jitter. You can see that it changes every time I hit the brush, it changes the size. That's what the jitter does. It changes things for you. Minimum diameter is 0%. Well, I'm going to take it up to say 11. So the smallest to go is 11% of the brush, and it changes. You can do minimum of 64. So it's not going to get much smaller than 64%. So there's not much jitter going on there. So we'll drop that down. Angle jitter, we'll do it at 100%. Click, click. Let me take the size jitter down so you get the same thing over and over. What it does, it just rotates the brush randomly over and over and over. So the angle jitter is just going to go crazy and change the brush around. So you're not getting the same brush stroke every single time. Come on. Oh, you know what just happened? My history state. Let's see, it's in performance. History state was set to 9 from last week. Let's go to 25. And what happened was when I went back in history, once I hit the 9, I already got rid of those. So no problem. We'll just fill it with white. So I hit Command or Control, backspace or delete, fill the whole thing with white, start all over again. Okay, angle jitter. So what you can do as you're painting, the angle jitter will change so you get a different look every time you paint. So that one, and then roundness jitter, bump that up to 100. It doesn't do a whole lot with this particular brush. So there's nothing to see there. Move along, as Mel says. So that's roundness jitter. And then you have minimum roundness. When you're using roundness jitter, you can turn it on and off. And then also you can use pin pressure, fade. So if you're using a mouse, you can use the fade tool or a stylus. You can do pin tilt and rotation on there. I don't know what rotation is. I've never done that before. And then you could do the flip XY jitter. So flip X, turns it upside down each time, and then flip Y, turns it around the other way backwards. So those are fun to play with, so you get a kind of a look at it. Scattering, you can change this.
Mike,
Yes.
Before we go on, could I ask a couple of questions?
No, but go ahead.
Okay, I put them in the chat, but you didn't notice them. So the first question was the spacing. I found that was very awkward at the default. So eventually I learned to set it to 1%, but I didn't know what the penalty was of setting it to 1%. Is it performance, so a slow computer can't keep up, or what?
No, it's just, it shouldn't slow your computer down. But just changing it to 1% just keeps the smoothing. Let's go back to smoothing real quick.
Sometimes I would click a point and then move and shift and click another point and join up a line, and it would be like bubbles along the way, and I want a nice straight line. So that's when I learned 1% was better, but I didn't know why it wasn't a default.
Yeah, that works really cool. Let's go into the brush settings again. and smoothing. There we go, spacing. I like my brushes at 1%. It's just how I do it. And white won't work, so you can see that the brush keeps up just fine. I'm slapping it across really fast, so it keeps up at 1%. And the same with, let's say 1,000%, you're only going to get one dot every.
10 diameters.
Yeah. So.
And then, thank you. And the next question was, you just showed us a brush, and I'm not sure whether it was built in or that you made it, but the custom brush. Is that allowed in image competition editing or not?
That would be a question for Dennis, but I don't see why it would not be allowed. Dennis or Dwight, you guys have an opinion on that one?
I believe it's allowed because if it's in the artist category, you're showing your technique and your aptitude or how well skilled you are with the software.
I agree with Dwight.
So what
Okay.
about photographic open?
I believe it's the same. Dennis, what do you think?
I think so
Nobody-
too. Go ahead. You know, this is really kind of an interesting whole thing with this open and this open there, and it's kind of convoluted. And if it's ever a question, add them so there's no question.
Yeah, and if you're photographic open and you're painting with somebody else's brush, I don't see that as same as putting somebody else's background in there or an object that you put in from somebody else.
Well, in my opinion, you know, and maybe I could go get Sherry to see how she feels about it, but you know, you just like you're using the standard brushes on any of the programs you buy, so you don't show them there. I think they're talking about, when they talk about that, Dwight, correct me, that I think they're talking about elements we add in, like backgrounds or different things we add in, and that comes about with all the baseball stadiums and, you know, those kind of things that people are adding in that we have to show if they're not ours.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
But don't quote me if they question you.
What Dennis said.
It's recorded now, so I don't need to, I can just point them to the link.
Thanks.
Can I offer something that I remember reading?
Of course.
That brushes that are made entirely in Photoshop, you know, are acceptable, but when you buy brushes from someone and the brushes are made from a photograph that you didn't take, those were not allowed. Like fire or rain or clouds or something like that. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, but you can also build your own brush using fire. Well, I guess somebody else did it for you, but how are they
Yeah.
going to know? I mean, that's, if you're using a picture from a brush, that's one thing.
Yeah,
But-
if you like photographed fire, and I won't mention Woody Walter's name. He has a lot of really nice fire brushes, but they shouldn't be allowed in competition because you didn't do the photograph.
So I'm getting the idea that if the image portion, which is captured by somebody else, is recognizable, then it's a foreign element that you need to show in the guides. But if it's not recognizable, then it's considered artistic use of a tool.
You have to show it in your guide anyway, if it's from somebody else. Like if you get a background and it's not recognizable because it's a background,
I see.
you would have to show that because it's not yours. But if you photographed the background and used it, then it was your photograph, so you'd be okay.
You know, I
And that-
believe if you show the brushes that you purchased or you got it from another resource, I don't think it actually would hurt your image if you put it in as not as a guide, but as a sample as in your photographic open. I don't think it actually hurts your image. It just shows that the progress of what you did to get your final image.
Okay, thank you. And I didn't want to hijack the session, so sorry.
No, it's good to know, because we do have district coming up and IPC in the near future. So that's good to know.
Well,
Thank
just
you.
for reference, though, like if Dwight or I or any judge sees anything in question, we ask for it to be flagged. And if we see an object like that, they come ask us after the session or on break why we flagged it. We express our concerns. Then they make a decision there, or they actually call the person to clarify it. So there's always that.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So what we have up at the top up here, you've got opacity, you've got flow, and then you've got smoothing. Smoothing is something that's really cool that they've added. Right now, the default is set to 10%. So when you, whoops, that didn't work. Take your spacing down and let's go with red, because red's nice and bright. When you paint, that's using the mouse, and it's semi-smooth, 10% smoothing. It's kind of cool. If you take it up to 100%, you can see the tail follows along, and it makes a smoother transition when it's doing the curves. So that's what smoothing does. And if it starts acting funky on you, look at your smoothing and see where it's at. Here, you can see the curves are not quite as smooth because it's at 0%. So that's what smoothing does for you. And then you've got this butterfly up here, which is set symmetry options for painting. So I'm going to put, let's say, dual axis. And I haven't done this for a while, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull it off. You can see it changes things, how it paints. Make it a smaller brush. Start up here. And you can do some really weird things with it and just play and have fun and experiment. Sometimes it's going to come out really cool. Sometimes you're going to go, what was I thinking? And in this particular case, what was I thinking? So we'll get rid of that. And that's the butterfly right here where you set the symmetry. To the left of that is your airbrush. I'm sorry, your always use. It is where you get the tip, but it has to be with your Wacom tablet when you do that. This is the mouse, so you don't get anything. And it's not doing it with there either. So I'm trying to remember where it goes to. Anyway, if you turn that on, that will make a difference as far as getting the pressure and the tip. And this is not doing it. So forget I talked about that one. And we're going to fill that back in, make it go away. One of the things I wanted to talk about is how to make a brush as well. Somebody suggested while we're doing the brushes that we make a signature brush. I'm going to do that. So I'm going to hit D for default for my color. So I'm going to have it black. Go to T for my text tool or my type tool, depending how you want to do it. We're going to make a little box here for it. And I'm going to choose Taken by Vultures Demo. This is downloadable from, I think, dafont.com, DAFONT.com.
Yeah, that's where it's from, Michael.
Taken by Vultures Demo. And this is really cool. So I'm going to type in M-I-C-H-A-E-L Collins. That's me. And for now, I'm going to hit OK. I want to make that a little bit bigger and a little bit bolder. So I'm going to go to 36 point, and let's go to, they don't do bold. Oh, darn. So let's go to properties. And not in there. Okay, never mind. I'm just going to.
No, that font does not have bold available.
Yeah, I was going to go to properties and put a faux bold, if that's okay. And let's go to aerial, and we'll do photography, which is a little bit too big and too bold. So let's go down to 18 point. I think, okay, that one's set to regular as well. Cool. In fact, what I'm going to do, double click on that, Command X to get rid of it, and bring my box up so it's just Michael Collins. Down below, Command V for paste it in so I can move it around wherever I want it. And there we have Collins photography. Totally cool. And if I hit both layers, Command T, I don't know if it's going to work to make them both bigger. It does. That way I have a big brush and I can make it smaller if I need to. So here we go. I'm going to do M for marquee and select those. Go to Edit, Define Brush Preset, which is under Edit, Define Brush Preset. Sampled brush. I'm going to call this Collins Logo Especial, because I've been drinking a lot of tequila today. There's an E in there. There we go. Click OK. And you notice I get this, you can't paint right now because I'm on type layer. So let's go to the background, turn off the type layer, deselect with Command D, and now you have a logo brush. That works wonderfully for doing different things and painting with it. Once you have that set, you add it to your presets up here, which is, I have Collins logo. Just do that. You hit the drop down wheel right there, click on New Tool Preset. Would you like to create a brush preset instead? No, I want a tool preset, and it's the Special 1. Click OK. And now it's up at the top up there because it does an alphabetical order. So anytime I want to get into the logo brush, I just go and click on that and boom. If I want my other logo brush, boom. It's almost the same exact thing. Pretty dang close. That's how you make a brush. It's just that easy, and that's how you do a signature brush. So any questions on that one? Okay, let's go back to history to where we started. And I'm going to show you something that's unique to the brush tool. Let's get a soft round brush. In fact, I'm going to delete that one. Delete tool preset because I don't need it in there. Soft round brush. And let's paint. What I want to do is I want to paint with red outside of the black area there. So I'm going to click on my color red. And I'm going to go to settings. I'm going to go to behind, and it's not showing. Why is it not showing? Let's try unlocking that. There we go. I unlocked it. I'm going to paint behind with red. Okay. Of course it doesn't want to work when I'm doing this. Why is it? 100% opacity, flow, 100%, smoothing, no problem. What it should do is paint over transparent pixels, which that is sort of. Let's try something else. Command W to close it. Don't save. Command new. Background components. Let's do transparent. See if that works. Okay, there's red. And I want to paint with black, so D for default. And we'll go to behind. And you can see that it's not painting over the red there. If you try to do behind in your layer panel, it doesn't exist. But in the brushes, behind is there, so you don't paint over the top of the color that you have there. If you want to paint on clear, basically that's an eraser brush. You just erase out what you just did. Also with, if you're in normal mode, if you hit the tilde key, you hold it down, you can erase while you're painting. Oh, but don't want that. Hold the tilde key. And that's the key next to the left of the one key. That's the tilde key. And it's basically a paint eraser for you. And it erases the paint that you just did. Ay, 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 so many things here. How many of you have gotten, let's go ahead and fill it with white so you can see that, have gotten your brush to look like this? Just the crosshairs. If you've done that, couldn't figure out how to get out of it, you hit the cap lock key and it comes back. And you're going, well, why would they have that there to begin with? Well, if you want to get precise, you just do that. You do the cap lock key and boom, you're precise right on the center where you want to go. In your preferences, let's go to cursors. You have your standard full-size brush tip, which is I have now. Standard shows up like a brush, which is confusing to me. You have precise, which is the cursor. You have normal brush tip, which is round. Show crosshair in the brush tip. You can see you have your normal brush tip and it has a crosshair in it, so it gets you more precise. That's a pretty cool way to show your brush as well. Did I keep that? Let me go back there again. Get rid of that thing that's driving me crazy in front of me. Go back to cursors, full-size brush tip with a crosshair. Click OK. And now it's not doing it. Why is it not doing it? It should show me that, but it's not. And I don't know why it's not doing that. You can tell it to show only crosshair while painting. Let's see if it does. Nope. Okay, I was going to show you a neat trick with that, but it's not working, so I don't care. Let me get out of there and go back to my normal cursors. And we'll go to normal brush tip. Okay. So much for that. And you can also take your favorite brushes and put them in your library as well. I've never done that before, but it can be done. Really easy to do. If you're looking for a particular brush and you go to your brushes in the upper left, you have a search brushes. I'll bring it up so you can see it. Search brushes right along above where your previous brushes were, which is really cool. You go in here and let's say I want a grass brush, G-R-A-S-S, grass brush. And it's under one of my favorites because it's dune grass. And you can paint with grass. You can go in and change the colors. So we have green in there. You can also change the color jitter on here as well. Let's go to Window, Brush Settings, and Color Dynamics. Hue jitter, 79%, saturation, 50, brightness, 37, just for fun. And let's change the background color to kind of a off green. Make the brush a little bit bigger. And you can see the saturation on there. Let's make it even bigger so you can really see it. The hue jitter changes the hue or the colors. Saturation made it brighter and less brighter. So I'll turn that down. Brightness jitter, let's turn it down to 0. Paint, and now it's not so saturated and not so bright. So if you're painting grass and you want to use your grass brush, which is one of the default ones, take the hue jitter down, and you see it that it took mostly the greens. If you take the hue jitter all the way up to 100%, you get the wild colors. So I was going to show you just how to find a brush, and we did that. So now you know how to find a brush. Any questions on all that stuff?
What does the purity do?
I have no idea. Let's crank it up to 100%. Hue jitter down. And we'll take it the opposite way, minus 100. The purity just made it like a less saturated brush. So we'll do it minus 100 purity, and we'll take purity to 0. Now we'll go up to 100%. It just, I think it affects more the saturation than anything by the looks of it. I hope that answers the question, because I haven't got a clue. There's so much stuff on here. I might know 50% of Photoshop, maybe 25%. There's so much more to learn. So,
You're my hero.
oh, thank you, Raja. You're so kind. Any other comments or questions? That was the brush tool in a wild 45-minute run. Okay, let's go ahead.
So Michael, sometimes when I'm painting, I know that the brush goes much wider than the circle that I'm using, and I can't see where it's going to end. So that's when I would use the full size brush.
Yeah.
Mode. No, cursor, sorry.
When you're painting with a soft edge brush, it's going to go outside of your area. Let's go ahead and share screen again.
So can you flip between the standard and full size easily, or do you have to go to preferences each time?
You have to go to preferences to do any changes to it.
That's
Okay.
not part of a custom brush.
You can set up your own custom brush if you want, and then name it
Would
inside,
that include
outside,
the
whatever.
cursor?
Yes.
Okay.
So if right now I've got my brush set up a soft edge round brush, let's do, you can see that it's actually it's staying inside of there pretty well, but let's go ahead and get rid of that one. Bring up my brush settings again. Go to brushes, and I'm going to save this as a new brush preset and include tool settings in there. Capture brush size and preset, include tool settings. You click OK, name the brush something so you'll remember it, and do that. If you want a special color that you want that brush to come up every time, click include color. I got so many brushes. I need to organize my brushes something fierce. You can organize them into folders if you like. Like I have my brushes here on the left-hand side, and then Collins brushes. Then you can open up and see I've got Kyle concept brushes, which are free from Photoshop or from Adobe. You can get those as well. Maybe next time we can talk about how to get free brushes from Adobe, et cetera, et cetera. Now that I open that really wide, I want to make it smaller again. There we go. And with your settings up here, it says brush name, brush stroke. I like to have brush tip and no stroke. I'm not worried about it, so I just have it set up like that so I can see what I'm doing there. Okay, let me get back to stop share. Any other questions? Okay, let me turn the recording off.